All right, everyone, we're moving generally out of a low pressure regimen here into more of a high pressure regimen. We're going to be starting to see some warmer temperatures move back into the United States, bringing some pretty drastic changes to a lot of folks out there in the southeast, moving up into even the central plains and the southern plains, with some records potentially being able to be broken over here in the western part of the United States. Also, watching out for a low pressure system to come up here into the Pacific Northwest that could bring some pretty dangerous winds up there as well, and a couple of shots of snow up here initially in the northern Great Lakes going into the northeast. So we'll be breaking all of that down and more. Also, we're going to be looking into the long range a little bit to see if there's anything down the line that we can have any sort of confidence about. But before we get started, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get right into it. So looking at our upper level wind pattern right now, there's a reason why the weather that we're watching right now is so quiet. We've got a tropical jet down here kind of pushing all of that moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico and kind of keeping our surface-based cape, our instability out of the picture. So that's why we haven't really been seeing too much severe weather as of recently. And then as we move this into the 23rd, you can really see that our jet stream is way up to the north, our main jet stream up here. So we're not going to really see too many drastic changes here between cold and warm. We're mainly going to be seeing a little bit of a high pressure setup here in the western portion of the United States, and that's going to bring up a decent amount of heat into the United States, while most of our snowstorms, if we do get any, are going to be relegated to higher up into the United States, up here near Canada, coming into the northern Great Lakes and also into the northeast. That's also where a lot of our cooler air is going to hang out as well. As I continue to push this into the future, you can see that generally that subtropical jet stays down there over the Gulf of Mexico, continuing to keep that moisture, that storm food out of the picture here. And then eventually, we start to see a couple of kinks up here in our jet stream. Now, this is going to be bringing potentially every little kink that we see up here could be bringing a little bit more of an organized low pressure system, kind of what we call a clipper system up here, bringing some shots of snow repeatedly up here into this region. And we're really not going to see this pattern change at all until we get to about the 27th here. So this is about 5 days out. You can see that we potentially have a little bit more of an organized low pressure system, and that's going to kind of throw a wave into the jet stream here, causing the pattern that we're going to be in, that warm pattern, to change quite a bit, with most of our cooler air being possible over here into the eastern United States as yet another ridge tries to set up. But look down here, we got a low pressure system trying to make its way across into parts of the southern plains, and we've got to keep an eye on any low pressure systems that can kind of come up in this area, as that's going to be bringing some cooler air down from the north and some potential Gulf of Mexico moisture up into the United States. So we got to watch out for these little southern cutoff lows to see if they're going to bring any severe weather. I mean, you could see, there is a little bit of divergence in with this storm right now, which means that there's going to be, kind of a vacuum that's going to be bringing up that moisture from the surface up into the upper atmosphere, potentially causing some storms and thunderstorms. Given that this is so far out, can't really tell too much, but let's kind of look at our model trends here, at least for this day, and just kind of see if there's any agreement on the models yet. And you can see as I kind of bring this into previous model runs at around this time, we're just really not seeing much agreement yet. Yesterday, this kind of showed up, but then the next run it went away, and then it kind of is still there, and then the next one it goes away, and then we're kind of seeing that come back down to the south. So no real trend on this storm yet, no real confidence, and this would be kind of our first little look at a severe weather event, and this would be at the start of March, which is not abnormal at all. March is when we usually start to see our severe weather season pop off, so it wouldn't surprise me if we got this low pressure system, but we got to wait for a little bit more agreement before we start saying anything definite about this storm. And honestly, one of the biggest changes that we're going to be seeing in our weather is going to be happening here in the temperatures. As I push this forward, you can see that we're going to have some cooler air hang on the 23rd until we get into about the 24th here. You can see that warm air really pushes up to the north there in the southern plains, going up into the central plains. And again, this is on the 24th, kind of the peak heating hours here. We could have 70-degree temperatures all the way into parts of Texas, also pushing up into Arizona and also down into Southern California, where we could see some potential records broken over here for February highs. I'm not really thinking we're going to hit that all-time high, but some daily records could definitely be broken with this insurgence of heat. And as I continue to push this into the 25th, during the daytime, you can see that heat is still holding on here. And you can really see, we got 50-degree temperatures all the way up here into the Ohio Valley, going up the East Coast, maybe even some 60s, making it as far north as areas like Maryland and Delaware, but the southeast staying pretty nice there in the 60s and 70s. As I continue to push this into the 26th, you can see that that warmth pushes off a little bit further to the east here on the GFS. Now, this is pretty interesting because I was looking at the models yesterday and I didn't really see this much. Let's kind of look at our model trends here and see if we're in an overall warming trend or an overall cooling trend. So yeah, if we go back a couple of runs, you can see that is around 60 to 70 degrees down over here into the southeast with a lot of heat over here into Texas. And as I push this forward, you can see generally in the central plains, we're in a little bit more of a cooling trend. And then as we move further into our later runs, you can see that today's run is saying that it's a little bit warmer there, about 10 degrees warmer in the southeast, still decently warm over here in Texas as well. So at least over in the eastern United States, it does seem like our models are trending to a little bit warmer than what we previously thought. So definitely be ready for some nice temperatures out there. Definitely a nice little thaw coming for a lot of folks. And then eventually, like as we move into kind of the later portions of our forecast here, we're talking about the 28th here. You can see that we do have some cooler temperature starting to make its way into the Ohio Valley, kind of in the early morning periods here on the 28th. And as I push this back, you can see that this is actually, actually a little bit of a warming trend. There was one run that came out not too long ago where, there was a little bit more warmth than our most previous run, but you can see that, a couple days ago, it was showing a lot cooler and, it's still kind of holding on to that cold. So I would say kind of just a tad bit warmer than it was a couple runs ago, but still, some cooler air is definitely possible over here into the Ohio Valley as we move into the 28th. So just keep that in mind. If we get this cooler air coming a little bit further to the south, we're going to start to see that snow line move down with it. As I continue to push this forward, you can see that that cold really doesn't stay around for too long. And the GFS is saying warmer temperatures again, all the way across the United States. So the end of February is going to be kind of a battle between some of these cooler temperatures and some of these warmer temperatures. And generally, it's looking at least like the GFS is supporting more warmth than cold to end February. So coming over to our future radar here, let's go see what some of these storms will actually look like potentially as we move into the future. So you can see over here on the GFS, we got a little rain down there in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to kind of ride the coast, bringing some heavy rain potentially over there into Louisiana, also down there into the panhandle of Florida, then eventually into southern Florida. Now look up here to the north, we've got a little bit of a low pressure system up here trying to bring in a shot of snow, but you can see that our latest model runs are keeping this further up to the north. Now, if we come back into previous model runs, you can see that we are been getting a little bit of a northern trend here, and I think that's because generally we've been getting a little bit of a warmer trend on some of our temperatures, which is kind of pushing that 540 line a little bit further to the north, and some of these low pressure systems that form in Canada that can move into the United States a little bit further to the north. So it's not overly surprising that we're starting to see this storm migrate up in that direction. Generally, that kind of moves through northern Maine as we go into the 25th and eventually goes out of our hair. We got that low pressure system with rain moving out of Florida by that point, and then we shift our attention back over to this guy up in there into the northern Great Lakes. Another little clipper system could be possible there. Coming over to our model trends, you can see that this is kind of a recently agreed upon storm, so a lot of things could change. Earlier model runs were bringing this into the Kansas area, Nebraska, and then you can see that northerly trend here with this storm as well. But a little bit interesting is that it kind of chips back to the south again, and then kind of just makes a median mark there over there into northern Wisconsin, and then over there into northern Michigan as well. So still kind of a uncertain storm up there, but something to definitely keep an eye on as we move into the 26th. And then that's going to push potentially down into parts of Maine, New York. We're not really talking about a whole lot of snow, a little line of rain further to the south, not really expecting that to be severe at all. And that kind of moves out of our hair. And we're now over, almost past our 5-day range here. So that's in the range of accuracy what we got going. So relatively what we know is that this week is going to be pretty darn quiet. We're not really talking about any big storm system, any big snow systems at all. The main change and the big change that's going to be happening is going to be those temperatures, those warm up. A lot of people have been super cold this week, and I'll bet you a lot of folks are waiting for that warmth, and it is coming. So we can say that with some pretty good certainty here. After that moves through, we have some chances for some lake effect snow over there in Pennsylvania and New York for the 27th at the nighttime, going into the early morning on the 28th. But again, we're kind of in our range of low accuracy, but I do want to go out into the future here and see if we can see any storms maybe coming down the line with a little bit more certainty. So there is the potential here. So this is about 6 to 7 days out. Sorry, about 7 to 8 days out. You can see that we do have a little bit of a low pressure system kind of move through this area. I do want to check to see if there's any instability with that. There actually is a little area of instability that pops up in a decent amount there, over 1,000 joules per kilogram. So we could see severe weather as early as the second to the third. And I really do feel like, looking at instability is super important at this range. Now, keep in mind, this is a deterministic model run. We're not doing the whole suite of, ensembles and all of that. We're just kind of looking at model trends to see if there's any, consistency yet with any of these storms. And as you can see, kind of our last few runs have been hinting at a severe weather event out here, but all the runs before that, kind of had something there, and then it kind of jumps around a bunch. So, we could start to be moving into a little bit more certainty of a severe weather event down here into Texas. I will say the Euro is not nearly as bullish on this. And looking at our bulk shear as this storm comes through, you can see that there is some areas here where we have some decent shear. So again, this is super far out. No reason to get worried about this at all, but there is a little bit of a trend forming for a storm on the 3rd. It's just a signal. That means I'm going to be watching it, but I think it's going to change a lot before we even get there. It might not even be there tomorrow. The last thing I want to look at here is going to be up here in the Pacific Northwest. We do have a little bit of an interesting storm coming up here with bringing potentially anywhere from 40 to 50, maybe even 60 mile per hour wind gusts as we move into the 24th at around 12 p.m. So if you live over there in the Pacific Northwest, just be watching out for that. Also, some gustier winds coming in with some of these clippers. 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts are going to be possible over there in the Great Lakes as well. All of that's going to move through. But in this storm could actually scrape the coast for quite a bit. I mean, we have even 70 mile per hour wind gusts making it just onto the coast there of Washington and Oregon. So definitely a chance there for some major power outages as that moves through. So if you guys do live in that area, just be watching out. We could have a little bit of a bomb cyclone coming up there, rapidly intensifying, and then potentially bringing a little bit of a sting jet, which is essentially some drier air above interacting, kind of pushing that lower level jet down to the surface. And we could definitely see some stronger winds as that pushes up into here. So if you guys live up in this area, just be watching out. That's another area where we're watching out for some significant winter impacts over there. And then eventually that is going to die off as we get into kind of the later portions of the 25th. And then eventually that wind is going to move into the northern plains with some 40 to 50 mile per hour winds. And then eventually that's going to kind of die off as it moves off to the east. Maybe eventually bringing some 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts over there to Nantucket and eastern Massachusetts as we move into the 27th. All right, well, that's going to be it for me. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next video. But before you leave, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It does help out the channel a bunch, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another forecast, most likely talking about nothing.